Hey guys, finally part 6 of the electric go-kart is here. It's been almost 2 years since I posted the last go-kart video, so let's go back in time and do a quick recap. So in part 1, we bought this old go-kart for $400 in unknown condition. We didn't bother trying to get it running, we just went straight into stripping it down to the bare essentials. The first electric setup was a 48 volt 1 kilowatt brushless motor and controller kit that I got from Motion Dynamics. I made up a 48 volt LiPo battery pack by connecting a bunch of these Turnigy packs with little jump cables. It had a pretty budget wiring job, it was quite hacked, but I did get it going and that was so exciting.
Jesus Christ, that's some power.
I had a go riding this around the neighbourhood a few times, but when I went to film it I broke the chain literally on the first run. This highlighted a major flaw in the drive system.
Oh no.
This dodgy bolted together sprocket was never going to last. In part 2 I did a quick repair of the sprocket and managed to showcase the go-kart with the BLDC motor. It wasn't too bad, but pretty slow overall. I think I only got up to somewhere around 40 km an hour. And with this controller, we topped out around 55 amps current draw. With this success, I was pretty keen to improve the go-kart, so I bought the second-hand motor setup from a local buy and sell page. This is the Motenergy MEO708 brushed DC motor, and I've got an all-tracks 48 volt controller with it. Pretty much none of the old setup was useful with the new components, so I stripped it all off to start again. The new Motenergy setup is a lot more powerful than before, so we need to solve some of the weak drivetrain issues. I got the hub adapter modified to suit a motorcycle sprocket and chain, which is definitely strong enough for the stresses of a go-kart. The wiring for this setup was a little more complex, as it now involved a high current solenoid and heavy duty cabling, but we got it running in the end. It was pretty sick hearing it go for the first time. We were careful in our road tests to slowly increase the current limit while we dialed things in. So like these first runs were at like 30 amps, just making sure that nothing failed electrically, nothing got too warm, the drivetrain didn't kick the chain or anything like that, and that the brakes worked. But yeah, then we could increase the power a little bit more. And man, it was a blast, we had so much fun ripping around. Though pretty soon we came across another problem with the drivetrain. At higher power settings, the motor was generating so much torque that it twisted the heavy duty plastic motor mounts, causing the chain to come off. You can see how much it's twisted here. It highlighted that the plastic mounts were also not going to cut it. In part 3 we replaced the plastic motor mount with a fabricated metal one that was crazy strong and solved any last issues with the drivetrain. I did a little bit of cosmetic work on the plastic bumpers, giving them a coat of black and some high quality graphics.
That's not terrible, man.
Now I wanted to try and address something I was experiencing with the battery pack. There was a massive voltage sag when under peak load, and I wondered if I might be able to combat this with a hybrid approach. So I installed some supercapacitors on balance boards that were in parallel with the batteries. There was a noticeable increase in acceleration with a good kick off the line from these caps. However, the benefit was quite minimal due to the very low energy density. But these results excited me and I wanted to get some further data. So in part 4 I bought some 400 farad supercaps to try and place with the previous 100 farad caps. This time I set out some marks about 50 meters apart and completed some runs with and without the supercaps. I got a nice increase in acceleration this time with over a second gain. But since these caps had no way to recharge except by sucking current from the battery pack, it wasn't long before the batteries were damaged. So I had explored the benefits and drawbacks of a supercapacitor setup and was having a lot of fun with experimentation. I started playing around with a small Arduino circuit that could limit how fast the supercap's charged off the battery and could be connected in parallel when charged up with a sort of boost button, but I never completed it. I will probably return to the hybrid idea sometime in the future because I think the supercapacitors are still a valid idea if they're used in the right way. In part 5 I built a battery pack out of the SPIM08HP cells from Battery Hookup. This was a 14S 2P configuration that was rated for 400 amps continuous and bursts of up to 800 amps. Though the battery pack was crude, it was very successful and delivered the best results so far. The go-kart had a top speed of 70 km an hour. However, we've once again found the limitation. This time the controller and motor have been maxed out, with the peak current draw being rated for only 300 amps. So that was the last video and nothing followed. Now half the reason for this is that I forgot to disconnect the battery pack and left it connected for like 6 months. When we got to the new house and I started looking at the go-kart again, the batteries had been drained to almost nothing. 3 volts. I was pretty annoyed at myself and to be honest I kinda gave up. I didn't want to buy any more batteries and couldn't justify the cost. I even took some videos of stripping the kart down and some kind of sad dialogue saying that I had finished with the project for now. Well, that's the end of the line for this go-kart and my efforts towards making it an electric vehicle and exploring a few different technologies and researching ways to make it fast. But then I won this on an online auction and it changed my mind. The ME1003 is the bigger brother of the ME0708 motor and it's rated for a lot more power. So I guess that's where part 6 kicks off properly. If you've made it this far, thanks for watching. Hopefully you guys are up to speed now. If this is your first time checking this go-kart out, I'd recommend going back and watching each of the previous parts in full, especially if you want to know more details. Alright, let's get into it. I've got it loaded up on the sawhorses where it will be a good height to work on everything. I'm giving the kart a quick once over to check it out since it's been sitting for quite some time. The brakes are still okay, but I'll probably bleed them with fresh fluid before any test runs. The side bumpers get in the way, so I'll take them off. I'm just using a bit of WD-40 to penetrate some of the rust on the bolts. I'm going to use the same mounting for the motor as last time since all the mounting holes are the same. Here is the ME0708 motor that we were using before, and this is the new ME1003 motor. Obviously it's much bigger, which is going to take some work to fit. I'm fixing the custom motor bracket onto the original petrol motor mount, and I'm just making sure it's nice and tight and straight. I've also got to swap the sprocket from the old motor onto the new motor, which has the same shaft size and was a straightforward swap. The weight of the motor made it a bit tricky to handle, but the mounting holes are the exact same as the old motor, so everything lined up perfectly. Next up, I removed the seat from the seat frame because I had a suspicion that the new motor was not going to fit very well and that I might need to modify things a little. And I was right, the motor is so close to fitting, but that seat support is in the way. I considered using a hammer to try and bend the frame, but it would have shifted the seat mounting points and might have made the kart uncomfortable to drive. So I just got an angle grinder and cut the support off. Sweet as, so now the motor fits, but we have an issue. Alright, you can see I've got a little bit of adjustment to do here. This whole motor needs to be shifted that way, I think, so I've loosened all the bolts off and that's how much play I can get out of it, so that there seems pretty good to me. So I'll get down and I'll try and get this nice and tight. And that's the next issue we have now, is clearance from this chair, so what I'm going to do is just cut away a little bit there and smooth that, and that will mean this chair can sit in a little bit further in that way, which is what it needs to do, just to get the position back where it was in the cart. I'm just freehanding a small section of the chair to cut out. Don't forget protection, fiberglass is pretty nasty stuff. Oh, she's a tight squeeze, boys.
Not a lot of room for error there. That's got to sit up about there once I put the spacers on. A little concerned about the terminal being here. One of the options I could do is probably rotate the motor by 90 degrees that way, and that will put these terminals a little bit lower, so that would be here under the seat a bit more, and that one would hopefully sit just where this one is now. So I feel like that's a little bit safer considering where your elbow and arm would be when you're driving. So she's tight, so I've cut out a little bit of the frame there, and now I'm thinking about how I can support this. So the angle's just, I mean, look how tight it is. I don't think I'm going to be able to get away with coming all the way forward. Maybe directly that way, but it's still going to be in the way of the seat. So I think instead, just a little piece going that way to here will be just enough. And I mean, that's plenty of cable clearance. Example, here's a cable. I mean, there's plenty of clearance there to get in through that way, so pretty happy with that.
Okay, so we've got the motor mounted in the right spot now, and I'm pretty happy with how it fits. So next we can put together the rest of the drivetrain. Cool, so that's the axle sprocket fitted and aligned as best I could. Now we can get the chain on. I can see that this could do with removing one of the links, and the rest of the slack can be taken up by shifting the motor mount on the frame. So you can see how shifting the motor tightens the chain up. No need for a tensioner or anything like that. Now I can just tighten up the bracket on the frame, and that should be decent. And I have to loosen it off again to fix the seat. Alright, next thing to address was the tyres. One of the back tyres only held air in for a few minutes last time, so I got some cheap new ones, and some guys at a local tyre shop fitted them for free, which was nice. One of my mates is a boiler maker, and he came over to give me a hand with a few things. We tipped the car on its side, and he welded a small piece of the bar that I cut out into this spot, which will stiffen up the seat support. I'm just doing some basic electrical tests now that the drivetrain and go-kart is able to move about. You can see the motor is acting as a generator with me turning the axle. This is something we'll explore in future videos when we look into regenerative braking.
Right, this could be a bad idea. All we're going to do is just test it. Let's see if it turns. Woo!
Sweet, this all looks pretty good to me. It's only pulling 9 amps at this low voltage and with no motor controller, but of course we wanted to try it. Awesome, that's where we'll leave things for now with the ME1003 and drivetrain fitted and ready for some juice. In the next video, we'll work on the electrical system. Thanks heaps for watching, I'll catch you guys soon.